You uncover the shadows of people who want to remain concealed. Every moment you shine, they came after you for that purpose. This is not because you made a mistake, not because of your vulnerability. Simply being present reveals the truth that they have tried to conceal their whole lives. Not because you had anything to prove. The carefully manufactured illusion of force, the power they professed to wield over you. They didn't want you to see it. It never occurred. They wanted you to think so. You must have enough self-doubt to avoid asking why their authority seems so flimsy at first. However, something changed. You stopped seeking permission. You stopped looking to those who had nothing to give for approval. And there was no mistaking the anguish in their eyes at that very moment, for their greatest fear was not failing, but rather waking. They spent years creating the situation, entangling the deception so tightly that you would never contemplate revealing it. They provided you a more manageable and controllable version of yourself, urged you to be grateful, and played sparingly. I told you that asking for more was selfish, that questioning them was betraying them, and that it was arrogant to block your own path because telling the truth was dangerous. You were never below them because of the truth. You were never helpless. The problem was never you. It indicated that every quiet undermining, insult, and whisper directed at you was not driven by a feeling of inferiority. They always knew you were deeper within. And now that you see it, their darkest fears are becoming reality. Not only are there holes in their story, but they also struggle to keep control and react. Each time you move, their confidence dwindles beneath the weight of your presence. How their voices falter when they speak about you, and how their whole existence seems to be geared against keeping you from realizing what has always been true. Their strength was never enough to keep you down. They only existed as long as you were oblivious of your identity. This is why they particularly targeted you. They knew you were unbeatable, not because you were weak or anything. You were not intended to sleep. Open aggression is seldom the first step. They do not come rushing in with their fists up and declare war on you in the middle of the day. No, it would be too obvious and easy to discover. Rather, they operate in the background, changing components while you are not looking, rewriting tales behind closed doors, planting doubt so carefully that you begin to wonder whether you're dreaming. An email was lost. A project was postponed. A well-timed criticism that slows you down and causes you to rethink yourself. You immediately disregard it. Errors happen, and misunderstandings are frequent. The patterns then become clear. The participants are consistently the same. When you enter the room, you always encounter the same tiny annoyances. The tension is the same as if someone has put a debate on wait. They do not want you to hear. You've seen it happen in the consulting industry. Clients trusted you without hesitation because you built your reputation the right way, with talent outcomes and an uncompromising sense of integrity. You did not need to take any shortcuts. Playing dirty was not required to progress. It was sufficient that you just accomplished the work. That was exactly the problem, since your sheer presence constituted a danger in a culture where so many individuals rose by treading on the backs of others. Even if you were not playing in their game, you were still winning, and this was intolerable. AI's lies were never designed to endure, and they have short legs, so they can't go far. They felt they had covered all tracks, buried all evidence, rewired everything, and changed history to match their narrative. However, deception is a sensitive matter. Everything goes apart with a single mistake or missing blunder. It was not intended for you to know. Every little detour, every well-planned coincidence, and every jigsaw piece shifted just enough to create the idea that this was how things were intended to go. They had spent years securing this, yet destiny might swing the balance with just one misplaced connection. There was one lapse in their control system. You did not even look for it. Perhaps you had already accepted that the industry was corrupt, political, and prejudiced against anybody who refused to play dirty. Perhaps you had began to convince yourself that the setbacks were merely a necessary part of the process. However, the reality ultimately came up with you. As proof of their alleged brilliance, the colleague who had made it their aim to lower you had a customer, their most valuable one, that they displayed like a trophy. They had never had the customer, however. You were requested. They had asked for your name. They chose your business due of its reputation. However, The request was intercepted somewhere along the path, silently rerouted, hidden under layers of deliberate misinformation and false tales. Not because you were unworthy, not because they didn't believe you were competent, but because your very existence undermined the illusion they had established. Because there would be no denying the difference if you had been given the opportunity to thrive. The world would have recognized the difference between manufactured status and earned successes. Success is something to be won, built from the ground up. Aptitude, dedication, and hard effort have all shaped me. A foundation built on toil, restless nights, and invisible battles. You had that belief. This is what you experienced. However, they did not build their own success. They'd taken it. Initially, you did not see it. You felt they had achieved their position via hard work, skill, strategy, and connections, all of which fueled their hubris. You never suspected that their whole career was a shell game in which they shifted things around to make it look as if they were engaged in something they were not. However, upon closer scrutiny, the reality became clear. The statistics were truthful. Almost all of their customer agreements and cooperation might be traced to you. Relationships. You built agreements and projects from the ground up. They did not belong to them. Theirs had never existed. They knew about it for this reason. They worked hard to distract you, make you question yourself, and reject your own instincts, only to realize that they lacked the competence. If you ever looked at the facts, you'd see that they never had any impact. The power was never theirs. The only thing keeping them afloat was their connection to you. They always believed they were above reproach. They worked in secrecy for years, plotting activities behind the scenes and shaping tales to suit their needs. They thrived in secret because they knew you wouldn't figure it out, wouldn't look too closely, and would never grasp how much of their success was due to your name. However, chaos may erupt when fear takes hold. They initially convinced themselves that they still had authority and could fix, conceal, and patch the cracks before the foundation fell. They responded quickly, backdating emails, reorganizing paperwork, and delegating tasks to others. However, their stress was causing them to become reckless. They had been polishing their fraud for years, painstakingly rerouting customers, interfering with contracts, and ensuring that your efforts always benefited them more than you. Every move was precise, well-planned, and almost impossible to trace down. However, desperation has the power to alter people. Suddenly, ordinary system improvements started connecting previously unforeseen dots, timestamps, email traces, and client conversations. They discovered evidence that they had thought was buried. You observed something was once subtle become into something obvious. The email might have been sent to the wrong person. It might have been a report with conflicting information. Perhaps it was a stammer in their speech, a nervous slip-up during a conference, or the unmistakable sound of someone attempting to maintain a lie they could no longer sustain. It led you straight to the truth. Whatever it was, they were aware of it. This extends beyond business. This extends beyond just one jealous colleague, one dishonest system, or an unanticipated betrayal. Know that you've been going through this your whole life. They identified you as soon as you started to demonstrate differences. They knew who you were before you ever recognized it. They were concerned by this. People like you should not exist in their world. No, not outside their jurisdiction. You were different from the others. You did not stick to the plan. They wanted approval, but you did not. Your presence was unnerving, even as a child. Not because you disobeyed, not because you presented a challenge, but you were autonomous. You were dangerous as a result of it. Reflect on the past, even if you were the one doing the work. Keep in mind how your lecturers handled you and showed favor to others. How they scrutinized your every move while praising mediocrity. Remember how some of your classmates picked you out? You refused to blend in. It's not because you were weak. The pattern was established before you had a chance to recognize your own power. They aimed to destroy your confidence and make you question yourself. They kept you away because they were terrified of what you would do if you realized how precious you were. Not because you were undeserving. They weren't just reacting to you. You see, because they understood something you didn't. You'd outgrow them eventually. They were planning an attack, and they needed to stop it. They tried to persuade you early on to distrust your instincts in order to convince you that you were the problem and they were the norm. What's the most sneaky part? It almost succeeded. You accepted their projections, ideas, and voices when you should have challenged them. You were doubting yourself. In truth, they were never superior to you. Never. Were they more strong? They had never been more clever. Simply said, they were better at the game of deception, manipulation, and keeping those who share your characteristics from ever realizing who you are. They didn't expect you to wake up despite everything. You're still here. Despite their best efforts, sabotage, and years of telling you you weren't good enough. They are scared of it. After all, nothing can stop you now. If you can climb despite all of that, they claim the truth will set you free. However, most individuals are unable to handle it. It is the whole cosmic download for those chosen by the obsidian inner order. Not just the truth. There is no sugarcoating, no way out. They attempted to outrun you for years, as if this were a struggle to be won. They strategized against you, scrutinized your every action, and evaluated your advantages. They compared their worth to yours, assuming that if they could merely maintain their lead, they would demonstrate something to the world, themselves, and others. The fact that you never took part in the race, however, should be the most embarrassing for them. You did not see them as competitors. They were on a ghost chase since you weren't even playing the same game as them, who were desperately trying to stay ahead. They couldn't stop thinking about ways to make you seem smaller. They weren't even on your thoughts. You had no idea that your mere presence had turned their lives into a battleground. You proceeded with your usual. Some civilizations just take longer to collapse than others. It was inevitable. You did not have to do anything. You did not have to divulge secrets, set traps, or exact small-time revenge. You didn't need to push back in the way they were always afraid you would, by sending a single email or whispering a single word. No, you just needed to get out. And it was enough since their whole empire, reputation, prestige, and alleged skill employed to develop their profession were never theirs in the first place. You always had it. Your network, experience, and efforts. Your enthusiasm moved everything. Without you, they were nothing. And as soon as you went, the cracks that had always existed started to widen. It began little. A report without any details. A consumer who was less inclined to linger around. A meeting that was less fruitful without your guidance. Then it surged. There were 5 questions asked. 5 became an audit. Everything was disclosed during the audit. Years of subtle manipulation sabotaged success and fabricated data. Everything started to be revealed. Even people who had previously adored them, listened to them without question, and believed what they said. We are starting to see through the deception. The difficulty with deception is that it is based on more than just the falsehoods themselves. It relies on people not paying too much attention. And no one did for a long time. They're looking. Furthermore, they aren't finding brilliance. It is not a strategy. It's far from the genius that these phonies have always pretended to have. It is a vacant space, an empty throne sustained on borrowed power, and it is crumbling without you to maintain it. They used to be your reputations, guardians, ensuring that no matter how good you were or how big an impact you made, you were constantly questioned. They molded stories behind closed doors, dominated discussions in the room, and affected how others saw you. And it worked for a while. Opportunities that should have come readily to you were stopped before they could reach your hands. The underlying antagonism, the way people halted while chatting with you, as if they had been warned against you. Even if you couldn't see the strings, you could feel them. The hidden web of falsehoods that they purposely and methodically wrapped around you to keep you under control before you had a chance to show yourself. They were murmuring about you, spreading doubt before you could prove yourself, and affecting how others saw you before you had the opportunity to be seen. And you asked yourself questions for a while. You questioned whether they were right. Perhaps you weren't as skilled as you thought, and you didn't deserve the respect, success, and recognition you so desperately desired. That is the difficulty with lying, however. So long as people believe them, they will continue to have influence. Nobody does. Whispers are no longer on their side. The individuals they used to have so much influence over are starting to see through the veneer because they lost control of everything the moment they lost control of you. The narrative has been overturned. Their remarks are no longer relevant. Their allegations come out as sad, weak, and desperate. They used to support the rumors, but they are no longer interested. The same folks who used to shun you are now asking why. What is the worst? They can't stop it. You're creating your own story after they spent so much time trying to make sure you never had control over it. Not by playing the same dirty game they played. Not via manipulation or retribution, but simply by being who you were always meant to be. You are winning, and they will never be able to undo it because the truth always prevails over falsehoods, and they have run out of time. You didn't have to speak. You never had to prove yourself at their table. There was never any competition for a spot. You just needed to be there. This was enough to send them into a tailspin. They have been avoiding it their whole lives. But your presence forced them to confront it. Their own inadequacies, uncertainty, and inability to become who you are at your heart. They were intent on undermining your validation, even if you weren't searching for theirs. They viewed you like an opponent, even though you weren't in the competition, since every step you took, every ounce of confidence you had, and every win that came without dishonesty made them feel powerful. They needed to plan control and demolition. They were enraged because you never used deceit, and they chose to tear you down rather to heal their own wounds and get healthy. And you stay standing. You still get up. Not worried. Unfazed. Unstoppable. That is something they will never get over. They attempted everything, including manipulation, sabotage, and false statements. Whatever it takes to weaken you, to make you doubt your own ability to subjugate yourself. They felt that if they pushed you hard enough, you'd eventually break. But you didn't. Each strike, treachery, every whispered attack designed to weaken you, you accepted and absorbed. You did not break down. You did not back down. You did not ask for forgiveness. You adjusted. You developed your instincts. You grew skilled at moving quietly. They could no longer touch you. And they are afraid because you were never weak. They were never able to utilize their plans to ruin you. You became stronger each time someone attempted to destroy you. Each failure served as fuel. They knew they had lost the moment they realized it. The power was never genuinely theirs. You did. You do more than just survive. You are the best. And they are nothing more than a lesson you have outgrown. People who formerly thought themselves your biggest threat. They choose to confront you. They lost. They worked on secret schemes, attacks they were certain would destroy you, and planned for years. They erected every obstacle in your path, rewrote reality, and spoke behind closed doors in the hopes that you would break under the weight of their deception. But you didn't. You did not have to fight them. You never need to defend yourself. Strike back or refute them. You let them get out of control. Allow them to exhaust themselves while trying to break an impenetrable item. And you got up as they collapsed. You weren't even looking at them as they followed every motion you made. Even though you never entered the ring, they treated you like an opponent. The one thing that sealed their destiny was their obsession with controlling yours, since there is no denying reality. The checkmate is your own presence. They stand amid the debris of their own decision. They know they have no control over it. And watching you ascend, their greatest dread has come true. You didn't have to play their game to succeed without changing your identity or putting in effort.